"We can't walk anymore. Can we stay here?" Old couple said. What Hell's Angels did was heartwarming. When an exhausted elderly couple stumbles into a roadside diner asking for shelter they can't afford, a group of leather-clad strangers makes a choice that changes everything. What happens next proves that the smallest act of compassion can echo louder than the rumble of 100 motorcycles. The November rain fell in sheets across the weathered asphalt of Route 29, turning the two-lane highway into a river of reflected streetlights. Harold Garrison watched it through the grease-smeared window of his diner, the Evening Star Cafe, a sagging structure that had served truckers and travelers for 43 years. At 71, Harold had seen every kind of weather and every kind of person pass through these doors. The dinner rush had died down to nothing. 2 truckers nursed coffee in the corner booth, and a traveling salesman picked at a slice of apple pie at the counter. Harold dried glasses behind the register, his arthritic hands moving through the familiar rhythm, each movement a small victory over the pain that lived in his joints now. The bell above the door chimed. A gust of wind drove rain across the checkered linoleum floor. 2 figures stood in the doorway, so drenched they might have walked straight up from the bottom of a lake. The man was perhaps 75, thin as a rail, with white hair plastered to his skull. His clothes hung on him like they'd been made for someone twice his size. The woman beside him couldn't have weighed more than 90 pounds, her face a map of wrinkles, her eyes tired beyond measure. They held hands like children afraid of getting separated. "Please," the old man said, his voice barely audible over the drumming rain. "We can't walk anymore. Can we stay here? Just until morning?" Harold set down the glass he'd been drying. The couple swayed slightly, exhaustion making them unsteady. Their shoes were held together with duct tape. The woman's coat had more patches than original fabric. Come in," Harold said, moving around the counter. "Get out of that doorway before you catch your death." The old man's eyes filled with something that looked like relief mixed with shame. "We don't have much money, maybe $5 between us. But we could clean, or wash dishes, or—" "Sit down first," Harold interrupted gently. "We'll figure out the rest after you're warm and dry." He guided them to a booth near the ancient radiator that clanked and hissed in the corner. The woman sank into the cracked vinyl seat with a small sound of relief. Her husband sat beside her, still holding her hand. Harold brought towels from the kitchen. "I'm Harold. This is my place." "Owen," the old man said. "Owen Lattimer. This is my wife, Dorothy." Dorothy managed a weak smile. Her lips had a blue tint that Harold didn't like. He cranked the radiator higher, ignoring the protest from his heating bill. "Where are you folks headed?" Harold asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Owen's jaw tightened. "Anywhere but where we were. We lost our home 3 months back. The bank took it after I got sick and couldn't work. We've been staying in shelters when we can find them, sleeping rough when we can't." Harold felt something twist in his chest. He'd been alone since his wife passed 5 years ago, but at least he had this place. These people had nothing but each other and the clothes on their backs. "You hungry?" Harold asked. Dorothy spoke for the first time, her voice soft as tissue paper. "We couldn't pay for a meal. The $5 is for a bus ticket. We were trying to get to Dorothy's sister in Virginia, but we ran out of strength. We've been walking since yesterday." Harold made a decision that would have made his late wife proud. "Tell you what, I was about to close up anyway. Food that doesn't get eaten just goes to waste. You'd be doing me a favor." Owen's eyes sharpened. "Sir, we don't want charity." "It's not charity," Harold said firmly. "It's practicality and hospitality. My mama raised me to feed hungry people, and I'm too old to break the habit now." He went to the kitchen before they could protest further. 20 minutes later, he set down 2 plates of meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Real food, hot and plentiful. He added coffee and 2 slices of pie. Dorothy's hands shook as she picked up her fork. Owen bowed his head for a moment, and Harold thought he might be praying. Then they ate with the careful intensity of people who'd gone too long without a proper meal. Harold busied himself cleaning the counter, giving them privacy with their hunger. The truckers left, dropping bills on their table. The salesman followed. Soon it was just Harold and the elderly couple, with the rain still hammering the roof like it had something to prove. The bell chimed again. Harold looked up, ready to say they were closed. The words died in his throat. 6 men filled the doorway, leather jackets dark with rain, chains glinting, boots heavy on the floor. Their faces were weathered and hard, beards dripping water. The patches on their jackets marked them as something most people crossed the street to avoid. Harold's heart kicked faster, but he kept his face neutral. "Evening, gentlemen. Kitchen's about to close, but I can get you coffee." The man in front, built like a granite boulder with a gray beard and eyes that had seen things, looked past Harold to the booth where Owen and Dorothy sat frozen with fear. The old couple pressed back against the vinyl seat, Owen's arm moving protectively around his wife. "We're not here for coffee," the big man said. His voice was surprisingly quiet. "We broke down about a mile back. Rain like this, we figured we'd wait it out somewhere warm." Harold nodded slowly. "Fair enough. You're welcome to wait." The bikers filed in, water pooling around their boots. They took positions around the diner, some at the counter, others in booths. The big man moved to the booth directly behind Owen and Dorothy. Harold saw Dorothy trembling. Owen's face had gone pale. These were people who'd learned to fear strangers, especially ones who looked like trouble. The big biker noticed too. He leaned forward slightly, his voice gentle. "Ma'am, we're just here to dry off. Nobody's going to bother you." Dorothy nodded quickly, not meeting his eyes. Owen's hand tightened on hers. Harold brought coffee to the counter. One of the bikers, younger with sharp features and a scar along his jawline, nodded his thanks. Another, barrel-chested with hands the size of dinner plates, added 3 sugars to his cup. The rain continued its assault. Thunder rolled across the sky like boulders tumbling downhill. Harold glanced at the old couple, saw them trying to make themselves invisible. The big biker stood up. Owen tensed, but the man just walked to the jukebox in the corner, fed it quarters, and selected something low and bluesy. When he returned to his seat, he caught Harold's eye and gave a slight nod, as if to say, "Trying to make it less tense in here." 20 minutes passed. The coffee pots emptied, and Harold refilled them. The bikers talked quietly among themselves, their conversation a low rumble that blended with the rain. Harold noticed they kept their voices down, their movements careful, as if aware they were intimidating to the old couple. Owen and Dorothy finished their meal. Owen carefully folded his napkin, placed it on his empty plate. He looked at Harold with the expression of a man about to ask for something that shamed him. "Sir," Owen said quietly, "we hate to impose further, but is there somewhere we could rest? Just for a few hours. The floor would be fine. We won't be any trouble." Harold's mind raced. He lived in a small apartment above the diner, barely room for himself. The storage room was full of supplies. There was nowhere suitable for 2 people, let alone 2 elderly people who looked like a strong wind might break them. Before he could answer, the big biker turned in his seat. "Excuse me," he said to Owen. "Couldn't help but overhear. You folks need a place to stay?" Owen's expression closed off. "We'll manage." "I'm sure you will," the biker said. His tone was respectful, careful. "But if you're walking to Virginia, that's a long way in this weather. Dangerous, too." Dorothy spoke up, her voice thin but determined. "We appreciate your concern, but we don't need... We run a charity." The biker interrupted gently. "For veterans and folks down on their luck, it's what we do. No strings, no judgments, just help when it's needed." Owen studied him with suspicious eyes. "Why would you help strangers?" The big man was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. "Because I was homeless once. After I came back from overseas, couldn't find work, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Some people helped me when they didn't have to. I'm just paying that forward." Harold saw the shift in Owen's face, the way suspicion gave ground to cautious hope. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "We can't pay you back," Owen said. "Not asking you to," the biker replied. "I'm asking you to let us make a phone call. Get you somewhere safe and warm tonight. Tomorrow, we'll talk about getting you to Virginia, if you want our help. If you don't, that's fine too. But at least let us get you out of the rain." Owen looked at his wife. A conversation happened in that look, years of marriage compressed into a moment. Dorothy nodded slightly. "Okay," Owen said. "Thank you." The big biker stood and extended his hand. "Name's Lawrence. Most folks call me Boulder." Owen shook his hand, his thin fingers disappearing in Boulder's grip. "Owen Lattimer. This is Dorothy." Harold felt something loosen in his chest. He'd been trying to figure out how to help these people, and now help had walked in on its own. Boulder pulled out a phone, walked to the door where the signal was better. Harold watched him make the call, his voice too low to hear over the rain. When he returned, he looked satisfied. "Got you a room at a motel about 10 miles up the road. Clean place. Friend of ours runs it. You'll have it for as long as you need." Dorothy's hand flew to her mouth. Owen blinked rapidly, fighting tears. "How much?" Owen started. "Covered," Boulder said simply. "You just worry about resting." One of the other bikers, a lanky man with kind eyes, spoke up. "We've got a van coming to pick you up. Should be here in about 20 minutes. Roads are bad, so it might take a bit." Harold found his voice. "Your meals are on the house tonight. All of you." Boulder turned to him, nodded slowly. "Appreciate that, brother." The next 20 minutes passed in a strange, warm atmosphere. The bikers chatted with Owen and Dorothy, careful and gentle, asking about their lives without prying into their pain. Harold learned that Owen had been a factory worker for 40 years, that Dorothy had been a nurse. They'd raised 3 children, all of whom had moved away and lost touch. "Family's not always blood," Boulder said quietly. "Sometimes it's who shows up when you need them." A horn honked outside. Through the rain-streaked window, Harold saw a white van with a wheelchair lift. One of the bikers jogged out through the rain, spoke to the driver, then jogged back. "Your chariot awaits," the lanky biker said with a gentle smile. Owen and Dorothy stood slowly, stiff from sitting. Boulder draped his jacket over Dorothy's shoulders. It swallowed her tiny frame, still warm from his body heat. "You'll get it back," Dorothy protested weakly. "Keep it," Boulder said. "Looks better on you anyway." At the door, Owen turned back. His face worked, emotions too big for words fighting to get out. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why did you really do this?" Boulder considered the question. "Because nobody should have to sleep in the rain. Because you reminded me of my grandparents. Because we can, so we should. Pick whichever reason works for you." "All of them," Owen said, his voice breaking. "All of them work." Dorothy hugged Harold, her arms surprisingly strong around his middle. "Thank you for feeding us, for treating us like people. You are people," Harold said gruffly. "Don't you forget it." The bikers helped them to the van. Harold watched through the window as they made sure Owen and Dorothy were settled, made sure they had the motel address and Boulder's phone number, made sure they understood this wasn't a one-time thing. When the van pulled away, its taillights disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness, the bikers returned to the diner. They were soaked again, but nobody seemed to mind. Boulder approached the counter. "What do we owe you for the coffee?" Harold shook his head. "Nothing. You did a good thing tonight." "So did you," Boulder replied. "Most places would have turned them away. You gave them dignity along with the meal." "Can't take credit for basic decency," Harold said. Boulder smiled, the expression transforming his hard face. "Maybe more people should try it." The bikers left money on the counter anyway, far more than the coffee was worth. Before Harold could protest, they were filing out into the rain, engines roaring to life one by one. The sound filled the night, a thunder that rivaled the storm. Harold locked the door behind them and began cleaning up. He found the $5 Owen had mentioned under Dorothy's plate, weighted down with the salt shaker. Below it was a note on a napkin. "For tomorrow's breakfast, please keep feeding people. The world needs more folks like you, Owen and Dorothy." Harold folded the napkin carefully and put it in his shirt pocket, along with the $5. He'd frame them both, he decided. A reminder that kindness could come from anywhere, could flow in any direction. 3 weeks later, on a cold December morning, Harold was wiping down tables when he heard the sound. At first, he thought it was thunder, but the sky was clear and blue. Then he realized, motorcycles. Dozens of them, maybe more. He stepped outside and saw them coming down Route 29 like a parade. The bikes filled both lanes, a river of chrome and leather and rumbling power. At the front rode Boulder, his gray beard streaming in the wind. They pulled into the parking lot, into the street, filled every available space. Harold counted 30 bikes, then 40, then lost track. Men and women in leather dismounted, their boots hitting pavement in a rhythm that sounded like purpose. Boulder approached with that same careful respect in his eyes. Behind him came others, faces serious and determined, and behind them, stepping carefully from a van that had pulled up, came Owen and Dorothy Lattimer. They looked different. Stronger, healthier. Dorothy's coat was new. Owen stood straighter. They were smiling. "Harold," Boulder said, "we came to say thank you." Harold blinked, confused. "For what?" "I gave them a meal. You're the ones who helped them." "You started it," Boulder replied. "You showed them kindness first, when they had nothing and nobody. That matters." Owen stepped forward. "These folks helped us find Dorothy's sister, drove us all the way to Virginia. But more than that, they made some calls, pulled some strings, got me enrolled in a program for displaced seniors. We have an apartment now. Small, but it's ours. They even helped me get my medications sorted out." Dorothy added, "We told them about you, about what you did. They wanted to meet you." Harold felt heat rising in his face. "I really didn't do anything special." Boulder's expression grew serious. "You treated 2 desperate people like they mattered. You gave them food and warmth and respect. That's everything, brother. That's the whole game right there." One of the other bikers, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward. "We take care of people who take care of people. That's our code. So we're here to take care of you." Harold didn't understand. Then he heard more engines, different ones. He turned and saw trucks pulling up. Construction trucks, supply trucks. Men in work clothes climbed out, began unloading tools and materials. "What's happening?" Harold asked. Boulder gestured to the diner. "Your roof is shot. Your parking lot is more pothole than pavement. Your kitchen, equipment is older than I am. We're fixing it, all of it. Consider it a thank you." Harold's throat tightened. "I can't accept this. It's too much." "You can and you will," Dorothy said firmly, "because we're family now, and family helps family." For the next 2 weeks, Harold's diner was transformed. A crew of bikers and contractors replaced the roof, repaved the parking lot, installed new kitchen equipment, repainted every wall, replaced the booths and counter stools. They upgraded the electrical system, fixed the plumbing, replaced the ancient heating system. Harold tried to work, but they kept shoving him into a chair and bringing him coffee. "Your job is to supervise," Boulder told him. "Let us do the heavy lifting." Owen and Dorothy visited every day, bringing lunch for the workers. Harold learned they'd become something like mascots for the motorcycle club, living symbols of what they stood for. The club had set up a fund to help other elderly people in crisis, named it the Lattimer Initiative. On the last day of work, as evening fell and the new sign was being hung, Evening Star Cafe in bright, beautiful letters, Harold stood in his transformed diner and tried not to cry. Boulder found him there, standing at the counter, running his hand over the smooth, new surface. "Looks good," Boulder said. "It's perfect," Harold managed. "I don't know how to thank you." "Keep doing what you were doing," Boulder replied. "Keep feeding people. Keep treating everyone with dignity. Keep being you. That's all the thanks we need." The bikers threw a reopening party. The diner filled with people from the club, from the town, locals who'd heard what happened and wanted to see the transformation. Owen and Dorothy sat in the booth near the radiator. New radiator now, but the same spot, holding hands and smiling. Harold worked the counter, his arthritic hands not bothering him quite so much tonight. He poured coffee and served pie and watched his diner full of life and laughter and unexpected family. As midnight approached and people began to leave, Boulder approached the counter one last time. He laid down a leather jacket, folded carefully. The patches marked it as belonging to the club. "What's this?" Harold asked. "You're one of us now," Boulder said simply. "You live by the code even if you didn't know it existed. Take care of people. Stand up for the weak. Repay kindness. You're a brother, Harold, if you want to be." Harold picked up the jacket with trembling hands. It was heavy, warm, real. He slipped it on and it fit like it had been made for him. The bikers still in the diner erupted in cheers and applause. Owen and Dorothy stood and clapped, tears streaming down their faces. Harold felt his own tears finally fall, and he didn't bother wiping them away. In the weeks and months that followed, the Evening Star Cafe became known as a safe place. Homeless people knew they could get a warm meal there, no questions asked. Bikers from clubs across the region stopped in to pay respects. Owen and Dorothy visited every Sunday, bringing stories and laughter and the kind of companionship that made Harold's apartment above the diner feel less empty. Sometimes, late at night after closing, Harold would take out the napkin with Owen's note and the $5. He'd remember that rainy November evening when kindness flowed in unexpected directions and changed everything. The world, he'd learned, was full of people who looked intimidating but had hearts of gold. Full of people who'd been broken and rebuilt themselves into something stronger. Full of people who believed that the greatest rebellion was simply caring about others. Harold Garrison had fed 2 hungry strangers on a rainy night, and in return, he'd gained a family he never expected, and a purpose deeper than just keeping his diner running. He'd learned that compassion was never wasted, that every small act of kindness rippled outward in ways you couldn't predict. And every time he heard the rumble of motorcycles on Route 29, he smiled, knowing that sound meant family was coming home. If you have enjoyed the story, tell YouTube to send you more stories like this by subscribing to this channel, liking the video, and leaving a comment.